Not even on purpose. Welcome. Welcome to Marisa Wolf's Tech Fails, aka Feral Ladies. On this Feral Ladies, we have 3 really fantastic guests, and we're going to dig into at least one really fun topic. Who knows where the night will take us. But so excited to have you all here. So I'm going to have our guests introduce themselves first, and we will go with the EDHP, Shami, John order, and then my fellow hosts, and then we'll get into it.
All right. Well, I'll kick us off. So I have 2 pen names. As HP Holo, I write semi-clean, fun fantasy adventure gamelet about dumbass monster hunters. As Edie Sky, I write sort of that, but smut. I'm most known as Edie Sky these days, and the smut stuff is also more LitRPG than gamelet, but that's something we can discuss later.
Very soon, I love. Thank you. Shami.
And I'm Shami Stovall, Shami like the car cloth. I don't have any other pen names. I'm not cool like that. I mostly write progression fantasy. I do some sci-fi and some urban fantasy, and I also have a LitRPG. And sometimes I'm just all over the place, but progression fantasy is 100% my jam. So that's why I'm here.
Well, you're here because you're awesome and we like you. But
correct.
All of those things are also true.
Also just like a little feral, just like a
fair. Yeah, I got a little feral. I'm mostly kind of sedated, but I'll try to be more feral.
Feral.
She's like the dangerous, like ambush predator feral, right? Like
I'm an opossum where I'm pretending to be dead until you get close, and then I jump you.
There's a hiss. Yeah, I don't know why I keep doing the pause, but for fun, I guess. Okay.
So great.
On that note, John.
Yeah, up to that.
As an ambush predator, no, just kidding. Go ahead.
John Stovall. I'm Shami's husband, and I've published entirely LitRPG, about 50% of it in the Dungeon Core subgenre, all of it under my actual name. I think I'm at 17 books now.
Nice.
Wait, no, but John, important question. Do you identify as an ambush predator? What else? Persistence predator?
Persistence predator.
I'm a large herbivore.
I love it. Feral herbivores, also a thing.
As feral as I get is like feral hog.
Dude, that's like the top of the feral.
Yeah, they're freaking feral, man. You have to hunt them from helicopters.
I was like, on this measurement scale that I just invented right now, the feral ones are pretty high.
I mean,
whoa. I love it. All right, Kacey and Melissa.
I always go first. Go first, Melissa.
Okay, well, hopefully I'll do better than I did last time where I completely stumbled all over myself. Hi, I'm Marisa Olthoff. I am super caffeinated, not at all tired. I write sci-fi, I write fantasy. I always sneak in romance because I write what I love to read. And look at me actually saying my line correctly this time. Woo!
Well done. Well done. Yeah. Yeah. Fun fact, Melissa ran home from the day job and immediately got online to come do this with us. So thanks for doing that. I'm Kacey Ezell. I write emotionally charged adventure, fantasy, and science fiction. To include, I have one progression fantasy, LitRPG, deck builder game type book that I wrote in John Stovall's world, which, thanks for letting me play in your backyard, man. It's been so much fun. So that's kind of why I was interested to talk about this topic, because it was a really, really cool experience kind of getting into that, a little bit different genre than what I usually write in. So
nice. And I am Marisa Wolf. I write science fiction and fantasy that ends in hope, no matter how not hopeful it gets along the way, maybe a little. And I am new to the world of LitRPG and gamelit, unless we're counting Ready Player One, which I read when it came out. But I don't know that we're counting that. So with that, I thought we could do a very quick definition of what we're talking about tonight. As Kacey said, we got a really fun topic. So just kind of talking about this. We talked about romantasy a couple episodes ago. I love talking about these really fun subgenres, especially these ones that are dominating the charts. Mm-hmm. So to do kind of just a quick, here's what we're talking about when we say whatever. And then I'm going to let Kacey ask a bunch of questions because I'm going to be here taking notes for my TBR bio. So,
I'm ready.
right, girl.
All right. So let me tell you, just because this is what we did with the romantasy stuff, this is how it exists in Kacey's universe, which, as we all know, is not the real universe, but I really do think that it is. In Kacey's universe, the definition kind of goes like this. Gamelit is the umbrella term that refers to any sort of subgenre that has game elements that are an integral part of the plot and or structure of the story, right? Within that umbrella, you have several subcategories. One of them is LitRPG, which is one where the characters part of one of the characters' motivations is to actually improve their performance somehow via something that looks like experience and assigning, utilizing that experience and assigning it to various statistics, either explicitly in terms of stat blocks actually on the page, or implicitly in terms of the best example I can think of is actually one of Heather's Edie Skye books, or a whole series, where the characters upgrade the robots with the your big series Titan Mage.
I didn't write Titan Mage's LitRPG, but people call it that because of the upgrade system.
Right, the upgrade system is not, but it's not explicit. It's like LitRPG Light or Light RPG. I've heard some people call it because it's not explicit stat blocks on the page, but the characters are doing exactly that with upgrading the robots. And then progression fantasy, which is where one of the purposes of it is, or I'm fumbling with my thoughts, where one of the story goals is actually to do that same sort of thing, often in a fantasy setting, but specifically taking tasks to get better so that they can go and face some big bad at the end, right? Just like grinding levels in a fantasy RPG in a game. Would you guys say that those are fair definitions, or am I missing nuances here?
I think those are fair definitions.
Fire away.
Seems fine. I mean, I guess for progression fantasy, I would have said, I guess you covered this, but maybe even sometimes the joy of the story is the gaining more cooler powers. Sometimes it's even like loot gathering. There's a lot of progression fantasy that's like, and then I got a shit ton of magical items, and now I'm even more powerful than you've ever seen in your life. And you're like, whoa.
I think something similar is true of LitRPG, where the stats are almost a character in and of themselves. Like, it's not just that the characters have stats; it's that the readers specifically enjoy the stats and analyzing the stats,
and the system too, right? Like, when I started writing Shadowcard Guardian, which is the spinoff of John's series, which is specifically a deck builder series, right? So in case you're not familiar, a deck builder series is a series where the magic system / the game system is based on cards and building a deck of cards in some fashion, right? And one of the things that everybody loved, and one of the reasons that I fell in love with the series and wanted to write in it in the first place, was John's card system that he created. That was just I thought it was like a really elegant way of explaining and defining like how magic worked in this world, and I just thought it was really cool. Do you want to talk about that at all, John? Like,
can I ask a quick question first?
Yeah.
Just before we go too far, Shami, you mentioned there's like a loot thing. One of my favorite things about D&D is at the end when we get all of our loot. If you could send me some recommendations, if you have any of good like loot heavy books, that would probably go to the top of my list. I'm a magpie, you guys. I am who I am.
I'm pretty sure you're a dragon.
Yeah, I got some Rex.
Thank you. I love you so much. Okay, sorry. Great question. Back to John.
Yeah, John, can you speak a little bit about developing a system that you built Demon Card Enforcer around?
I technically I invented it from scratch. The only reason I use the word technically is because it occurred in a couple loops, and it wasn't for me originally. One of the authors that works in Shami's writing group is named Ryan Tang. Mm-hmm. He's most famous for mimicking me. Mm-hmm. And he has most of a book written that was a card game system book, and he asked me to make the card system. I actually make systems for a lot of people for LitRPG. There's a couple books out there, most of which are smaller, admittedly, that have systems I designed in them. So I built the system for him, and then I talked to Shami about it. And I guess the thing that makes the system most liked by people is she said that the system has to serve the story. And it sounds very obvious, but it caused me to create the mantle system where the main character effectively becomes a card himself and plays in the game, so that he's not just on the outside, because it allows stakes to exist. But I was also a Magic the Gathering player for like 3 or 4 years back in the late 90s, and then Shami and I have gotten into it and out of it again, usually about a year to a year and a half at a time, and then we go 2 or 3 years and jump back in, and then we go out again. So I tried to get the feel of a Magic the Gathering game while coming up with a system that would work much better as a lit RPG, almost like a role-playing game type of system. It also allows triple progression fantasy, because the cards can advance, you can get new cards, and you yourself can advance your level. So I'm most famous as an author for Stats Go Burr. That's most people consider my writing to be kind of mid-tier, but my stat system generation to be extremely upper tier.
Yeah, can confirm. So John's book, just so that we all know, and to give producer Jeremy a chance to flash the covers here, the series we're talking about is John's Demon Card Enforcer series. Right now there are 3 books in the series. They're all out, available on Amazon in Kindle Unlimited. But with a lot of the very popular LitRPG, game lit progression fantasy titles out there, you originally published them on Railroad. Is that right, John? Yeah. And it was very interesting because I did the same thing with Shadow Card Guardian, which, as I said, is a spinoff of your series. And I noticed that I got 2 types of commenters on Shadow Card Guardian. There were those who loved my storytelling, and then there were those who just criticized my stats. And I was always like, you guys, I promise John has seen this. I promise I worked with the creator. Like, so, but they're very like, the stats are very important to people. They sit there and they do this math, working it all out and stuff. So I think that was something that, like, maybe I thought I understood, but I didn't understand going into it, like, how important that really was, right? I didn't really get it on a fundamental level until I experienced, people's reactions to the story. So, yeah. I don't know. Or do we
quiet all of a sudden?
Yeah, we'll have Jeremy cut that bit.
No, we can have upward guesses. There's somebody leveling up. There was like a sign. It's fine. No, I had to.
No, did my internet freeze again? Crap!
No.
I got internet.
It's partially I muted because my dog decided she had to be in here. Like, she full body checked the door to get in, but now she's like at the door sniffing underneath, just going boof. And because I'm not responding to her except to like turning her like as like on mute, it's steadily getting louder boofs. So she's also progressing, just not in a helpful way.
Dazzle is currently at my door screaming too, so I don't think the microphone will pick him up, but let me know if you're a cat going
Can't hear him, which is great because nobody heard Finn, my 110-pound German Shepherd, like flop in the hallway right in front of the door, and the door went bam.
Maybe that's what Ella's boofing about. Who knows? we don't know. So stats. I will tell you, that is the thing that kept me from D&D for the longest. Because I was like, I'm going to mess them up. I'm ruining them, everything. But I read Shadow Card Guardian, and it immediately made me want to read Demon Card Enforcer, because I was like, oh, this isn't horrifying. This is super fun. I was scared of them. I'm not going to lie to you. Because I was like, am I going to have to do math? Like, do I have to calculate? This is not what I'm reading books for. I'm not reading books to calculate things. So is there like,
I'd actually prefer if you don't do the math, just trust me.
Yeah, 100%.
That's my stance.
Time math, and as I hope everybody knows at this point, I don't do that. So
you don't do time math. That's right.
Too much time math. But are there ways, like, so I love Stats Go Burr, which is my new favorite thing. But are there ways that you guys either use that or avoid using that or whatever in your to like really build your story in a really fun way? Like, is there
So
stat math?
my deep dark lit RPG secret is that I actually hate stats so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I wrote, the thing that drew me to lit RPG when I first started reading it, a lot of fantasy in general tends to be this really epic, serious, huge tome kind of stuff. And I have the attention span of a dead goldfish. I don't have time. Like, I started the first book of Wheel of Time when the TV series came out, and I'm still 1/3 of the way through it. Like, that's yeah, I don't do long fantasy. Lit RPG is fast paced and fun, and that absolutely is what got me into it. I skipped the stats entirely, but I like the gaming logic. And so when I decided I wanted to write my first one, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do game lit. I'm not going to do the stats at all because I always skip the stats anyway. And so that explains why there are no stats in Monster Punk Horizon. And then one of the number one complaints about the series when it came out was that there were no stats in it. And so when I decided to write an 80 Sky branch of it with Monster Girls and Smut, I was like, okay, I designed this world so that there aren't stats in it. Now we have to figure out a way to get stats in this world. And they literally hunt a monster called the Tropier, which makes the story tropier. They get a magic gem from it that allows them to see stats. Like, it's a silly story.
That's
but in terms of designing the story, with stats, my husband is an engineer, and so I said, Jacob, help me.
Yeah, weapon.
He made a set of stats, a very basic set of stats to allow me to work into the story, which I then promptly ignored as I was writing because I for whatever reason I cannot comprehend what stats are supposed to do. And when this goes down to even when I'm playing video games. Now, to compare how Jacob and I play video games, Jacob is a min-maxer. He likes to optimize his builds. I will play a game. I will not upgrade my skills or anything or change my armor until the game gets hard. And when the game becomes unplayable, then I will be like, oh, I should probably do some things with the numbers I've been accruing. And so that's how much I pay attention to stats. And it kind of made a weird disaster of the first book because one character has like a magic stat of 8, but somehow ended up with a magic giant robot. And Jacob looked at that and was like, that's a magic 8 cannot do that. And so when I just finished book 2, and when I did that, we basically just adopted the process of when I wrote the story and put insert stats here. And now Jacob is going through and inserting the stats. So mine is not lit RPG to read if you actually enjoy detailed stats. Mine is lit RPG to read if you like game logic. But yeah, the stats were an adventure.
That was that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Marisa. I was just going to say that I had a similar privilege in working with John with the cards in Shadow Card Guardian, because I would write, okay, this is what I want to have happen in the battle. And I would like send it to him and he'd be like, okay, these are the stats that like, this is the card that or I would send it to him, that, and then the like art that we would use or the image that we would use for the card. And he'd be like, okay, this is what the stats need to be in order to have that effect. So if you have a stats minded person like with you while you're trying to write this stuff, and if you're not a stats minded person, that's probably a good tip.
Although in all seriousness, I think you're selling yourself pretty short. You stopped using me right about 75% of the way through book 1, and I think you're 50% of the way through book 2, and you've made all your own cards. I think you've only even contacted me twice and been like, does this work?
Well, I mean, I mostly just copied your cards though. I was like, oh, this is a tier 3 card. Okay, I need a tier 3 card. Let's, this is about the same.
Got it.
So, I'm just resourceful.
I've played video games all my life, and I feel like at some level they're pretty ingrained in my psyche, like how video games operate. I also have things I like in a video game. So I used to play Pokemon competitively, like at tournaments and all that other kind of stuff. There's a build called like a sweeper And I know you might be like, what are you talking about, Shami? And I mean, like, there are ways to build your Pokemon, and sweepers max out their attack and their speed so that they can sweep the other team before they can act, right?
Nice.
And that's my favorite style of gameplay. Every game I play, basically, I attempt to make a sweeper build. When I played Elden Ring, I was playing super fast, super hard hits, but like with no defense. So I would die in one hit, but if I got there to the enemy, I'm gonna buzzsaw that guy's face. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I just like to play games. John actually plays the exact opposite, where he's more of like a tank or like turtles, or has a ton of defenses. And sometimes the fights might take a while, but that monster could wail on him 300 times and he would barely feel it, you know. And so I'm just the opposite. So I really like numbers that align with that. I usually, even in my lit RPG, I leaned pretty heavily towards, and then he got a lot of abilities and things that allowed him to one-shot enemies or do something crazy that allows the fight to kind of end in dramatic fashion. Yes. So I guess I just lean really heavily into my own gamer experiences when I do these kinds of writing, because I personally hate when a fight just goes forever, like just a slog, HP sponge battles. I'm like, oh God, why? But yeah, the really fast, really like, oh man, I guess the min-maxing to make this specific build, I'm there for. High five.
So, Shami, what's the name of your lit RPG?
The Nexus games.
The Nexus games, and that one's out. Correct?
Oh yeah, it's about like a special forces agent that gets pulled into a magical dimension where everybody has magic and all this other kind of stuff, and he has to fight in like a Hunger Games style tournament.
Nice.
Where everybody's using magic to get stuff. I had a lot of fun with it. I really like the Nexus games. It's probably one of my favorites. I don't think I'm really well known for it, but I did do it through Royal Road. That was fun. I have a fun as in big cut quotes, only because I remember when I got the negative comments for a very bizarre thing that happened that isn't even real. So in the story, the main character has to join a team. So these are death games with teams. And the team he joins, he's forced to join because one of the characters, and this might sound gross, but a lot of my books have like this weird body horror stuff. He's given these tyranny worms, and the worms infest his body. So when he's hurt, the worms use their own little bodies to heal his damage. Yeah. But they're also tyranny worms, and they answer to the tyranny queen, and one of the other people on the team has the queen. Therefore, he has to follow their commands. And the whole reason they do this is to force him to join their team so that they can have a complete team. They need 5 members. He's the 5th member, right? But as a part of the story, he becomes friends with these guys. And then they're like, okay, I guess, forcing you was fucked up. Really sorry about that. And then they all high five at the end. And we're like, oh, sorry about that. But when I first introduced this plot point that he had these tyranny worms, I got a ton of negative comments from people being like, is this a slave fiction? I'm not here to read slave fiction. And I was like, I don't know if slave fiction, quote unquote, is just rampant all over Royal Road. Like, and anybody who even slightly sees a plot that might resemble that gets angry. But I did get a ton of angry comments about slave fiction. And I was like, guys,
it's not what we're doing here.
Yeah, I'm not writing a slave fiction. I'm super sorry. This is just a plot point to get him to join this one, what basically looks like a loser team, because they didn't even have 5 members. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're the ragtag. Yeah. Everybody's like, these guys are going to lose immediately, you know, that kind of plot point. But yeah, I do remember Royal Road. I do remember having to be like, guys, you all need to calm down. I don't understand.
We're not doing that. We're not doing nothing, I promise.
Yeah. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah. I had a similar, like, you guys just chill the hell out comment storm when I introduced so Shadow Card Guardian takes place basically simultaneously with the first book of Demon Card Enforcer. And one of the prominent side characters in Shadow Card Guardian is a prominent side character in Demon Card Enforcer 2 and 3, both of which happen chronologically after those 2 books, right? And the minute I introduced that character named Rhett, everyone was like, wait a minute, you're throwing off all the canon, like the timeline's completely fucked. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, you guys, trust me. Like, John has read every word of this. I am not stealing shit, you know?
Okay, so
That
that's
only reinforces my decision to not post on Royal Road.
fair. It's fair.
I'll post on Patreon early, but that's a different environment.
Yeah. So,
But-
it's not all bad, to be fair. Like, I do seem to have like it's not super large, but I do have a dedicated core of readers on Royal Road who will comment every time, and they seem like lovely people. They're very invested in the story and the characters, and that's always nice.
Yeah, I would say that on Royal Road, I did get lots of people who were like, "Wow, this is fun. It's great."
Yeah,
it's just and this happens throughout all of life, right? Because you remember the like really intense negative moments that'll happen. But yeah, so I do think that Royal Road is actually quite nice, and you can do things like preemptively, like block people or mute certain people, so you don't have to see their mean, angry face comments.
Although, so that is a great point, because this is true, I think, for any smaller, rapidly growing, rapidly popular genre, because this is true in romantasy too. There are specific reader expectations. And if you do not meet those expectations, there is a problem. So, like, and sometimes you're surprised by them. Like, you didn't know slave fiction was a thing that you had to be careful of because you weren't going to do it. But that is a trigger, clearly, right? So, like, are there any reader expectations that you really love to work into your books, or you're like, ooh, that corner of lit RPG, kind of like the stats you were saying, Heather, like, that corner is not for me because the expectations are not a thing that I feel like meeting. Like, are there things
to
you
deal
like?
with,
That you either really like or you're really like, no, thank you.
I just love the concept of progression in general, regardless of how it manifests in the story, because I'm a huge fan of like shonen anime, where often the entire point is to get stronger. You know,
I've been waiting for you to bring this up. Thank you.
Yes, and even like now that I think of it, all of the stuff that I've written has some element of progression in it. Titan Mage with the robot upgrades, Blood Knight with the spell upgrades and whatnot, and I like progression because it gives me a very linear way to design a storyline, because it's like the goal is to get stronger. Here's what he has to do to get stronger. And that is one thing that I find that my readers get really attached to. And it varies from reader to reader, like the expectations vary from reader to reader, because some have very specific definitions of what constitutes proper progression. And it's like, if a character doesn't progress enough in a certain amount of time in a book, they will get hostile about it. Like, literally, when Titan Mage came out, there were people who were mad that Locke wasn't completely OP in book 2. And I'm like, guys, it's book 2. It is way too early for him to be God.
We're getting there.
And then there were others who enjoyed it. And so it's one thing that you have to be very clear about in lit RPG, and especially in the harem subgenre in which I write, is what tropes are present. And so that you can advertise to them properly, because if readers look for very specific things, especially in harem, and once you establish what things are in the book, you have to satisfy them. But most of the tropes that I know of are unique to harem more so than unique to lit RPG. So,
Fair. Yeah.
But I do love progression.
I think the one that surprised me the most was similar to what Heather said, is the immediacy of the need for the numbers to go burr, right? Like, my character was going into, it was her first time ever running a dungeon. She's brand new to being a deck bearer. She has no idea what she's doing. She's relying on the advice of her 14-year-old nephew, who only knows what he knows because he's kind of a fanboy about, sort of deck bearer culture and all this kind of stuff. Like, that's never been on her radar. The only reason she's doing it is to protect her kid. And she's going into a dungeon, and she has some experience points that are unassigned, which is a thing that John established in his books that deck bearers occasionally do for strategic reasons. And she's like, well, I don't want to assign these wrong, basically, or, and regret them. So I'm just going to let them be. And I had one dude, like, in the comments being like, no, this is absolutely not what she would do. She is a combat veteran. She would never go into a battle without her ammunition. And I was like, bro, she's fucking new. You make that connection because you're a gamer.
Yeah.
She's not. Like,
Yeah.
she doesn't know. You know? So yeah, I was unprepared for that same level of like adherence to the game mechanics. That's probably not the best way to say it, but yeah.
Or the rapidity, the rapidness, the speed of the level up, maybe.
Yeah, well, people just want so it's a self-insert, right? Which is fine. Most escapist genre, fantasy, fiction, whatever you want to call it, is to a certain degree. Yeah. But people were getting mad at me because the character was making different decisions than what they would make if they were in the character's position.
I find that. Oh, sorry.
No, and I was just like, I was not prepared for that. And then finally, I just decided to say, well, I'm sorry, the character's decisions are not the decisions that you would make. You know, thanks for giving the story a try. You know, like, I don't know what you want me to do, bro.
The aspect makes for some really interesting reader interactions too, because the thing is, at least for the subgenre in which I write, a lot of the readers are age 30 and above. And it is self-insert. So the reader generally, to a certain extent, pictures themselves in the role of the hero. It's why I don't ever physically describe my heroes in general. And as a result, they expect the heroes to make the decisions that a 30-year-old or above would make. And all of my stuff, like the main characters are 19. It's pretty conspicuous that they're 19 and they make 19-year-old decisions. And I occasionally get knocked for how the character makes certain mistakes. That's one thing in Harem. The main character generally is not allowed to fail by reader standards, which is an interesting thing. Like, even if they fail for a decent reason, it's like the readers will be like, no. But
we can't have this here.
I have to deal in my stuff. But they'll get on to they'll sometimes complain about some of the decisions that my main characters makes, and it's like, guys, they're completely new to whatever magic they have, but also they're 19. They're not going to make seasoned adult decisions. But that it creates an interesting dynamic. There's this, you have to be, how to say it, there's just this interesting balance you have to maintain of acknowledging your readership while also making your character act in a way that is genre appropriate despite their age. Like, it's a really fascinating part of writing. That's this genre.
So I do think most of LitRPG is, the tropes are defined in the subgenres, and the reader expectations are in fact defined in the subgenres. I do think earning it is expected. You can hand out like a really cool OP power at the very beginning, like the reason the main character is special. But after that, they have to suffer and work and all the rest of that to get their advancement. But that is about the only truly consistent expectation. I would say, and this is a little bit, I don't know, it's just sort of genre expectation. I don't think so. Most of the audience is male in LitRPG. Like the lowest you'll find is about 70% male, and for certain genres like Dungeon Core, it's considerably over 90% male. And for whatever reason, I feel like most of this genre is intolerant of females being demandy, is the best way I could say it. I have gotten in trouble repetitively for what I consider to be perfectly reasonable requests of female characters prior to becoming interested in the male character, to the point that I now write them as extremely agreeable all the time. Like, they're just sort of, their goals always align pretty much exactly with the main character's goals, so that there's no reason they can't just get together. I actually prefer, personally, as a trope, male characters that have to earn their love interest. But that is not, I find, in whether it's Dungeon Core or, straight LitRPG, Isekai, my card world, and the modern stuff, it doesn't really matter. That's one that I encounter extremely consistently And maybe it's because it is escapist fantasy. Men don't want to imagine all the trouble they have to go through to date normally, or something like that. So,
Oh, I think there's definitely something to that, because
yeah.
it is escapist. You're reading to escape. You're reading to get away.
Yeah.
And it's like if you have pesky people in your life, you don't want to read about pesky people when you're trying to chill.
Everyone wants things. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Selfish.
Yeah. Right.
But
I have a question.
oh,
Yeah. So John, you, when you and I started talking about me writing Shadowcard Guardian, I initially was like, hey, should I even try to do a female point of view? Because that was, we had that conversation. And you said, yes, that I could. You said, but here's the thing. They don't care about whether or not the main character is male or female, so long as they are hyper competent and hyper violent when it's called for. And I found that to be true with Danny. A lot of the readers really enjoy. So the main character's name is Dania, but she's female. She goes by Danny. People love her. However, I have found it interesting that I set up a romantic tension between her and your character Rhett that I have borrowed and / stolen from you. And they don't like him at all because he is like kind of demanding. And, I get a lot of comments about how he's like, oh, he thinks he's this big bad white knight and blah, 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 blah. What are your thoughts on that in the context of what you just said about, do you think it's gender neutral, that it's just whoever the main character is dealing with, they don't want them to have a demanding love interest?
I mean, yes, but that's not what's really happening. What's really happening is they want to read men. And if the character is a woman, they want to read a man with a vagina. Okay. That's the actual reality. Okay. The typical male traits are, if you're quote an alpha male, okay, your typical traits are hypercompetence and willingness to use violence to solve problems if the situation calls for it, which in LitRPG, the situation always calls for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I've noticed this, there are quite a few famous female MCs. Azaranth Healer is probably the single most successful one with a lead female MC, but that person just wants to punch everybody, get more powerful, and surprise, sleep with a lot of ladies. Okay, like, so, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, we haven't even gone to the full limits of this, but there are quite a few stories called monster evolution stories, which are about basically starting as a super weak monster and becoming a strong monster. But the characters are always the same. They're always the epitome of hyper male traits, and nobody cares. Let me rephrase. LitRPG male readers do not care if the person is actually defined as male. They don't care what the skin color is. They don't even care if they're human, but they have to act like a man. Okay, that's the actual reality that I've discovered. That's my opinion on the subject. We don't have any hyper successful books with a character that does not act like a man within the genre. It doesn't matter what the skin color is. It doesn't matter what the genitals are. It doesn't even matter if they're human. But if you don't act like a man, you're not going to succeed in the genre.
Got it.
And you think that's an outgrowth of the self-insert piece of the escapist fantasy?
No.
I think it's a result of the genre being the readership is male dominated. Men have different trope expectations. Like I am beginning to, I write primarily male oriented romance, and am beginning to dive into a female oriented romance for a separate pen name. And the trope expectations for each genre are just completely different.
Yeah.
And it's most of the women reading LitRPG are women who enjoy reading male oriented tropes like I do. And that's something you just have to deal with if you're going to get into LitRPG.
And I want to be, sorry.
I'm just going to make a really feral comment right now because I need y'all to know what is currently in my head. It is Mulan, I'll make a man out of you after one time. This is going to be in my head the rest of the time.
Got it.
Thank you.
If you start dancing, then we know you're done. I got you. Okay.
And when I first talked to Kacey about this, I was actually a little embarrassed because I didn't want to just be like, hey, female author who's more than successful than I am, you can't actually write women that are super independent personalities, except for the main character and stuff like this. But she said to me, she said every genre has its expectations. And I mean, let's be real, in the actual romance genre for women, there'll be a whole bunch of hyper successful men making billions of dollars who want nothing more but to sacrifice their entire life for this one woman who, because she's just so special. So, it just depends on which audience you're talking about. But that has been a problem for me. I've had 2 of my series run into at least moderately notable problems, and I had to rewrite Demon Card Enforcer, the first one, entirely, like 40,000 words, to get past the 2 independent female problem.
I don't think it's that there's an aversion necessarily to independent females in general, because one of the top bits of praise that I get for Titan Mage is that it's a harem series, and all the women in this series have their own agency. People specifically say they like that the women have their own agency. But the reason that it works in Titan Mage is because the main character, Locke, still plays some absolute key role in their life. And that's the important part. He has value to them. That
I'm trying to figure out how to point at you. Yes.
Yes.
Exactly what you said. That and their goals align with his. Like when John said that to me about, because he told me about having to rewrite significant portions of the first DCE, so that the female, the female love interest goals like aligned with the main character's goals. That was like a light bulb going off. It was like, oh, because if you think about it, the same is true in eventually in female-oriented romance, right? So like the most extreme example that I can think of is bully romance, where initially the male main character or main characters are literally bullying the female main character. But eventually, and this is the thing that gets the readers of this genre all the time, eventually there is a switch that happens where instead of wanting to hurt and or frustrate her, they go to wanting to protect and or promote her goals. And so I think it's just that might be one of the universal things about relationships in fiction overall. It's something that we as humans want, because we all want someone to align with our goals, right? Like that's part of, that's part of the reason I like my husband, is because he and I have the same goals, every time I'm going to talk about it. In case you guys didn't know this, I fucking love my husband.
And you can put those words in any order and it will still be true.
Yes. Also true.
Cheers. Shami, any tropes or reader expectations that you really enjoy or you'd prefer not to deal with?
I've been holding on to my answer this whole time. Ready to go. I really love escalating fights, and I know that might sound crazy, but I grew up on Dragon Ball Z.
Yes.
Ever escalating fights is like something that is like heroin to me. Like in the very beginning, we're fighting like normal dudes, and then maybe we're fighting guys with magic, and then somebody's going to destroy the planet unless you destroy this guy, and then they're going to destroy the universe. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I'm just so weird.
God, right?
For this ever escalation of conflict. And it does happen a lot in video games and LitRPG and all this other kind of stuff. The stakes are always higher and higher and higher. I really like that. It just speaks to me in my core. I really do like the pull yourself up by your bootstraps, work really hard, and you get the power to do all the things you want to do. Everybody knows this about me because I've talked about it in like every interview, but I did grow up really, really poor. And I feel like only because I worked really hard and I went to college and I do all the stuff that I am not that way. So I really resonate with it in a story, and progression fantasy, LitRPG really hammers home that scenario. Okay, like you're a little kid and everybody's bullying you and they don't like you and all this other kind of stuff, but that's okay because you're gonna go into the backyard and for 8 hours straight you're gonna learn to swing the sword and chop all these things. Now your arms are so beefy you can fucking swing a sword like nobody can can compare.
Love
And
it.
in real life, not nobody, but in real life, you don't want to go into the backyard and swing a sword for 8 hours, even
Probably
if you
not.
know
Yeah.
that would theoretically make you a really good sword fighter, as if you practice sword fighting every single day for 8 hours. Most people still either can't or don't want to do it because, I want to play my video games, and I just worked my entire day at my day job, and now I don't want to go into the backyard and then also do an entirely new job. So that's also
While
part
you were
of these.
playing your video games, I studied the blade.
That's what I was like. Additionally,
able to level up through a montage.
in real life,
That'd be amazing.
even if I became a sword master, let's pretend I got a fucking katana and a wakizashi and I learned how to use these things like nobody's business.
Totes.
I mean, how often am I going to use them in real life? How often am I going to pull out my sword and fuck a dude up? You know what I'm saying? Like, probably never.
Really
So
depends
why-
on
The
your
apocalypse
goals.
happens
Yeah,
for the set.
well, so why learn the skill, right? Why dedicate 10,000 hours of my life to learning how to wield the sword when I'm never going to be challenged to a duel to the death? But in a LitRPG or progressive fantasy, everybody and their mother's wielding swords all over here and doing all sorts of crazy shit. And if I learn how to be a master, everybody's going to think I'm cool, and I'm going to get to fight so many other sword masters, and I'm going to become bitchin', and all the ladies are going to want me, or whatever it is. And so it is an escapist fantasy, but I really like the message behind it, which is that you can personally do it if you try really, 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 really hard. And a ton of LitRPG, a ton of progression fantasy has that basic thought process in the background. Now, some of them are, whoa, I was just born with the special head shape, and therefore I'm just way better than everybody else. That doesn't happen too frequently. It does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's still usually combined with a little bit of like, you still have to really work hard to improve your skill or your magic or whatever. So I really, really like that. I guess the tropes that I don't like or that get really weird are, I guess, a little bit what John was talking about, like almost like borderline misogynistic or something really bizarre where you're like, okay, yeah, I can at least understand why all the ladies would want the sword master, but I don't understand why all the ladies are just throwing themselves vagina first at this guy. Not normal.
Especially if he's got a sword. That seems dangerous.
They have the little shield. They've got the little vagina plate. It's fine. The key parts are covered.
First.
Yeah, or like a lady treated the guy bad, so now the lady is scum, and now we need to backhand that bitch, or something like that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. You were probably broken up with or told no to go on a date by a lady, and you hold this very deep, like, and you hate that. But I do get a little awkward reading stuff like that sometimes, where I'm like, I don't know if I was that into that, but it's not usually a deal breaker, if that makes any sense. It's just like, well, that was awkward. I'm not as into it.
That's fair.
But it is a little rarer. I find that most of the time in these types of spaces, what really happens is that, almost like what Heather, HP was talking about, where the guy is like, wow, I got this lady, and now I'm going to protect her, and now I'm going to build a house, and I'm going to have family with her, and I'm going to learn the sword so that I could just fight off all the bad guys that are going to come and try and hurt my lady in my house. And you're like, okay, that's pretty it's pretty ridiculously wholesome.
It astonished me when I first started reading LitRPG, and especially the harem branch of it, how much of the male fantasy was not just getting the girls, but protecting them and building towns or houses and whatnot to shelter them. Like that, the being a good protector and provider is also part of the male fantasy in these books. And which is one of the reasons why it appeals to me, because they're not just getting ladies and then being irresponsible with them. They're actually being productive in the context of their own setting.
Yeah, I like to joke that male harem fantasy is extraordinarily wholesome, because what it basically is a bunch of men who basically I want a beautiful wife and a house and a prairie, only I want 4 of those things.
Yeah.
That's
Let me tell you,
pretty much the...
So I am conspicuously a female writing in a male-dominated genre, and I fully expected to at some point get uncomfortable DMs, Literally every single DM that I have gotten over the past 2 years, however long I've been publishing, has been stuff like, can we get a world map? Can we get the stats for the robot? It has been, and most of the readers are like married men with kids, you know? I mean, I have the harem, like there are of course dark corners of every single fandom.
Everything.
But all of the interactions I've had with readers have been astonishingly wholesome given what I write. Like a lot of couples read the stuff together, for example. And it's like, and you will find some uncomfortable harem books, but I think they're beginning to not become the majority. I think they're becoming a significant minority now.
So I only have one series that is notably unsuccessful, but that series was a huge warning to me on a lot of levels. And to give you a little backstory, I was an attorney for 13 years, and I did not do nice, easy cases. I did murder trials,
right?
You know, child rape, things like that for 13 years. So I guess I have a darker sense of the world in certain ways. And I wrote my first book extremely to genre expectation. And the second one, because the first one was successful, the second series, I was like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'll do something. And I actually wrote a fairly dark book with a lot of dark sexual elements in it. Hated.
Oh, wow.
Very specifically, numerous men contacted me about that. Were very upset by that book. It is by far, I mean, wildly the least successful series I've ever had. So, yeah, the audience doesn't actually want that. They want extremely wholesome stories. They just have to want to beat up a bunch of orcs first.
You guys, this is what I'm going to hold on to the next time I see an idiot conversation on the internet streets, which are probably not even real people, but are like, oh, women are ruining this. Oh, men are terrible about that. Like, I'm just going to be like, you know what? No, the vast majority of our fandoms actually want the same thing. It's going to play out in different ways, and that's fine. But like, it is not split by genders. It's split by shitty people and everybody else. And the shitty people are the minority. And this is a really great reminder, because I just saw one of those today, and I was just like, really, people? This is the fight we're having in the year of our Lord 2025. Okay. People. Anyway. Well, so we are somehow almost at time, but what I would love, because my TBR pile has not yet grown enough. So one, when folks are watching this premiere, or if you're watching afterwards, please put in the comments your favorite books in these sub-genres, or if you, like me, are new to it, what you're excited to try. And those 4 of us, or 5, Melissa, if you've got some too, one of yours that you think people should read, and then one of somewhere out in the genre that you're like, this is an epitome of X, and people should know this. What do you got?
Who goes first?
Whoever. Jump in when you're ready.
Okay, well, I'll go
Heather
first.
goes first.
So,
You're unmuted.
So for mine, I want to say that it's tough because mine are different levels of LitRPG. But I'm going to say, even though I didn't write it as a LitRPG, I'm going to say Titan Mage, solely because the upgrade system is LitRPG enough that LitRPG readers have enjoyed it. But I also had the most fun writing it, and that really comes through on the page. So that's the one to go for. But if you really just really want numbers, Monster Girl Tamer is it. As far as LitRPG that I recommend, the one I always go to is Dungeon Crawler Carl. But everyone says Dungeon Crawler Carl, so I'm going to say the Mayor of Noobtown. And the reason I recommend that one is it's I think it's probably fairly older at this point, but it manages to, like, I actually was entertained by the stats, which is rare. I listened to it on audio. The audiobook narrator is spectacular, but also it really balances absolute hilarity with touching drama very well. And so I really enjoyed that particular one.
Thank you. Noobtown also is great.
I guess if I was going to recommend something of my work that was progression fantasy, I would recommend the Frith Chronicles. The first book is Nightmare Arcanist. That's the one that's based pretty heavily on like a Pokemon style world, and
it's so good.
It's a crazy adventure, you know, with a coming of age story where, you know, guy is like 15, but throughout the series ages all the way up until he's an adult. In the last book, he has a family. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of thing. But And we got lots of awesome magical creatures and powering up our magical creatures. I guess if I just generally had to suggest a book for lit RPG progression fantasy that wasn't Dungeon Crawler Carl or isn't one of any of our books, The Iron Prince is extremely popular and is based in like an academy setting. I know lots of people really like that. You know, it's I guess it's a little more sci-fi because main character gets like a CAD system and shit like that. But still, lots of people love it. I know one of the authors, Luke. He's really, really great. So I guess I would recommend that one.
Nice. Thanks.
John?
So for mine, I would recommend the world that we're sharing, Demon Card Enforcer. I only have 2 major series that are not Dungeon Core, and that's the one that I think people like the most. So that's where I'm going with that. I always recommend when people ask this, a book called or a series. It's Black Dawn. It's the Fey Nexus trilogy by Nathan Ameye, Ameye. I recommend it. I'm not saying it is the best lit RPG out there, but I think it is the best lit RPG that doesn't have a huge following. Is the best way I could explain it.
Deserves to be found.
Yeah, it deserves to be found. That's the I don't understand why it didn't hit. I'm assuming it just came out when there was too many other releases. Lit RPG is sort of famous for either you hit instantly or you never really
Got it.
catch, and it is a lot of luck involved in whether that happens or not. But yeah, the Black Dawn Fey Nexus trilogy, Nathan Ameye, strongly recommend for multiple reasons. Really good stats, but also easy to understand, and the guy writes very good characters.
Nice.
So I only have one book that qualifies. So please go read that one. It's
it's
Shadow
coming
Card
out
Guardian.
pretty soon when this comes out.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Actually, it might even be the same week, April 16th this year. So it is set in John's Demon Card Enforcer world. So please read them both. You'll get a lot more out of mine if you read his. And as far as one that I recommend, normally the one I recommend is actually Demon Card Enforcer, just because I loved it so much. I was like, I fucking got to write this shit. Let me figure this out. But another one that actually John recommended to me is another deck builder series called All the Skills by Honor Ray. Honor spelled with the British U. There are, I think, 5 books out on Amazon, and the 6th is I believe it's she is releasing on her Patreon. So that one's out there. But I'm going to cheat because I'm fucking feral and I can, and I'm going to recommend something else that is not truly lit RPG, but has a lot of lit RPG elements. And that is the Chronos Chronicles series by Shami Stovall. Starts with
Time Mark Warlock.
Time Mark Warlock. Sorry, you distracted me by doing this because my my Gen Z daughter always does. Like, she doesn't do this, but she like yells at people for doing that. So
I can't help it.
Time Marked Warlock is book 1. And then that's Chronos Warlock is book 2, and 24-Hour Warlock came out today as we are filming.
As we're recording this.
As we're recording this. And as soon as we're done, I am going to finish my word count for the day, and then I'm going to read the fuck out of that book because I absolutely love Adair Finch, the warlock, the main character of that series. He's awesome, badass.
Too good to me.
Go check that one out for sure.
Yeah. That was going to be what I recommended because I don't have any others to recommend, and I'm really excited about it. So no, it's great. I love it. You cheated, so I don't have to do shit. Melissa, anything you want to recommend?
So I don't have any lit RPG stuff. The closest I would have to progression fantasy would be my Valkyries novel, because Athena, my main character, does go through power level ups, and we'll be going through more when I get back to books 2 and 3. So Shadows May Fall. And if you want to read that one, highly recommend you read Marisa's first, because I mean, book 1, book 2.
The main character of book 1 is the world's okayest boss in book 2.
The world's
so you might as well meet her.
So that was a lot of fun. Actually, on my regular TBR is Discount Dan, because I'm like, this seems like a fun book. James A. Hunter. I literally have it on my phone for like my 100th open tab. So that would be what I recommend, because I haven't read it yet, but it looks like fun.
Tab shame. All right. So if you are watching this with us in the comments, or if you are watching this later, please go ahead and scroll down to the show notes where we will have everybody's links. So go find them, go stalk them responsibly on the internet like normal people. Maybe you'll see them at a con, have them sign a book, go buy their books. You are watching this on Kacey Ezell's Writer Life. So if you have not already, go ahead and subscribe. If you have enjoyed yourself even a little today, which come on, go ahead and click that little thumbs up button. We love that. And tell us in the comments, if you haven't already, what should we be reading? What do you wish, like Fae Nexus, what do you wish that more people knew about so that you could talk about it with them? Those are I love those books that I'm like, I need to talk to somebody about it. Nobody else has read it. Everybody must read it to talk to me right now. It's about me. Go. Okay. Anyway, that's all. Thanks for coming to join us. I say that's all.
Yeah,
but
thank you guys.
Hit the button like 17 times. So talk amongst yourselves.
Bye-bye.
Rutabaga.